What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Kind of Different, a podcast where we talk about innovation in dental care. We talk about making dental care more human, and we connect with some amazing people. And we actually let you, them talk about themselves and you get to know a little bit more about them. It's super fun, and we have just some amazing people come on and chat with us. And I'm super excited today to have someone that I'm so excited to hear her answers to the questions that we're going to ask her and hear what she has to say. Just a really thoughtful person. But before I introduce her, I'm Matt Allen, CEO and co-founder of DifferentKind, the host of Kind of Different. So Jordan Trentacosta, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Like I mentioned, I'm literally couldn't be more excited to hear your answers to some of these questions. You are a very thoughtful person, and I think will give a lot of our listeners and viewers just really insightful ways to think about patient experience and whatnot. So thank you for taking the time today. If you wouldn't mind, please give us a quick introduction to yourself, who you are, whatever you would like to share.
Thanks for having me. I'm Jordan Trentacosta. I am currently the Senior Director of Analytics for United Dental Corp. And my background is mostly in operations. So I have a lot of experience, from working the front desk, working all the way up to training, Director of Operations, and my passion's in data and analytics. So that's how I ended up here. Yeah.
Awesome. And one of the things I'm super excited to chat about, because we'll talk about making dental care more human, and you're, a senior director of data and analytics, right? In some ways that feels like a really good, place for us to explore, right? Of how are we using data and analytics to make dental care more human? I think that's a really interesting question, but hold that for now. I want people to know more about you, and I want them to, you're just such a thoughtful person, and all the conversations we've ever had have really enriched me. And so I want people to hear a little bit more about you first. And so I would love for you to just kind of talk about things that shape you and your daily life values. What's important to you, as you come to work, as you come to your family life, as you come to wherever you're coming in life. What are those things that are shaping you?
Honestly, that's super cliche, but it's true. It's mostly integrity. And what I mean by that, because, it's a buzzword everybody uses. But what I mean by that is doing the right thing, no matter what. And a lot of that for me comes from transparency. So just kind of giving everybody the opportunity to take what they will from the information I give them and giving them the opportunity instead of just deciding for them, how they're going to feel. But doing the right thing when no one's paying attention, no one's watching, no one would ever know the difference. That's how I live my life. And I like when others in my life live that way as well.
Yeah. Which, it's super fun to have this conversation on podcast. It's going to be heard by people, right? Because I see that in you. You're definitely not out there seeking notoriety in a lot of ways, and you're just doing the right thing. You're just being an authentic, genuine, amazing human, without really tooting your own horn, I guess I would say. So I would say you're living consistently with that based on my experience of knowing you, which is really fun. And so if you get to interact with Jordan, make sure that you are also being showing those things. And I'm guessing you'll probably be friends with her at that point. So.
Yeah, just be human, right? That's what we always say.
Yes,
just be real. Say things you mean.
Totally. Well, cool. I love that. When you so that is, talking about yourself as a person, and you talked about, you quickly mentioned there, you said not kind of telling other people what to do or assuming things for them, right? And I think that there's some threads that we can kind of connect there later. But I want to connect that to you as not just your job or whatever, but as a patient, right? So when you think about yourself as a patient, what's something that when you go seek care in whatever realm you're seeking, what's something that healthcare professionals, right, as you talk about values that are important to you, and I'm guessing it's some things around integrity and transparency and whatnot. But what are those things that a care team does with you that actually helps build trust with you?
Again, cliche, but honesty. Kind of, telling me if they're running behind, giving me a heads up, calling me in advance to tell me that the doctor's out today or something like that before I show up. Kind of being thoughtful about those kind of things. And, if they have to cancel for the afternoon because the doctor doesn't feel well, just say that. I feel like there's a stigma against just saying like, hey, a doctor's sick, and instead just be like, oh, they had something come up or something like that. And like, I get that like being sick is having something come up, but I think the more that you can be transparent with patients, the more it builds trust, and they can, start to feel a little bit more humanized with you and feel like they're kind of bonding and building rapport. And I think that building rapport is the key for trust, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Me personally.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, to your point there, right? It's like, how do you build trust? Like, we obviously know that trust is important, and it's not by saying, hey, you should trust me because I have a degree from Harvard or whatever, right? It's like, no, like I'm, showing you who I am, right? Like I'm a human, I can get sick, or whatever. So building transparency, being transparent, like being honest with people.
Yeah. Also like being honest about treatment too. Like, for example, my own personal experience with, I had a cavity on number 30. Apparently it was a large cavity once we got in there. And I was told, like you might need a root canal in the future, but I'm gonna try to patch it up and just do a filling. They were super honest with me. They're like, it's really deep. And they let me choose, like, do you want to go ahead and do a root canal and crown today, or do you want to just try the filling and see how it goes? I chose the filling, of course, but it was mostly based on the fact that I'd already been in the chair for an hour and didn't want to, sit there for another hour to an hour and a half for a molar endo. And it's been 4 years going strong, and I haven't had to have endo done yet. So I was glad they let me choose. So
that's awesome. Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Like when you had that conversation, were you leaned back or were you sat up?
I was leaned back. However, I will say it was where I worked, and I was the regional director for that doctor, so we were pretty comfortable.
Okay, cool. That, for me, like when I think, not that I tend to share a lot of my own advice on the show, but as a dentist, right, certainly as we talk to people, like when things like that are changing in employment, I feel like it's easy to talk to somebody when they're leaned back because that's just where they are. But like if things are changing and there's like a decision to be made, and feel free to disagree with this, Jordan, but like I always am like training people and coaching people and telling people if things are changing and there is a decision to be made, sit the person up, right? Because it's like, who wants to make a decision in like a really vulnerable, prone position? Of,
yeah, absolutely.
Or whatever. Like, I just want to feel like I'm empowered, and part of that is just posture, at that point. So
yeah. Well, it also, to be fair, it also came after her making a lot of noises. I had to be like, can you explain what's going on, please? Because you're kind of like scaring me a little bit. You make me nervous because you keep making noises.
Totally.
I think it was that she was still scooping and there was still like soft material there, so she was kind of like upset. But again, I worked there, so it was a different relationship, I think, the most. But I do totally agree with you. Like, if you're gonna talk to me about decisions I need to actually think about and consider, sit me up, talk to me. I don't want to, talk laid back with drool in the back of my mouth.
Totally. And I would also add too, like from this, and I don't, this would be another question that I had for you, like, giving the people the option is great, right? Like, what's important to you? Hey, like, I've already been sitting in this chair for an hour or whatever. I think one of our responsibilities as dental professionals in those situations as well with patients is to be able to like help them understand, like, is the chance that you're going to need endo 10%? Is it 50%? Is it 100%? Right? Like, based on what we're seeing, right? And to help people understand the like possibilities, not just like, hey, here are the options, but like, hey, it's close. But generally, like from what we know based on the literature, it's going to be. Because I wasn't there in the situations, I don't exactly know. But it's 80% of the time we can take care of this with the glass ionomer, and then we can put the filling on top, and it's going to be okay, right? Whatever it is. So I don't know if that happened, but certainly that would be something that I would encourage our viewers.
Yeah, she totally gave me an option there because it was borderline. I think if it's more like for certain, it's probably going to need a root canal. I wouldn't be offended if there wasn't really an option, or maybe just like educate me and say, hey, like, I really don't think this is going to hold up, but if that's what you want, I can do it. Just, sign a paper, notate something somewhere saying like, I told you this, like do a treatment plan that says it. Just, making sure that you're informing me of my decisions, my options, and then letting me make the decision. Ultimately.
Oh man, we could have a whole conversation about informed consent and like how it's usually like so many people treat it like a permission slip, right? Like, okay, just sign this thing, right? Whatever. You're like, that's not informed consent, unfortunately. Like just because they sign it that says informed consent.
Yeah, it's a permission slip. It makes you feel better. Like, may not hold up in court, but
you should have the signature, but the signature is more than just like signing the paper. So
yeah,
I love it. I think this gets into like some of the pieces that we talk about like now. Like, okay, so those are some things about Jordan that are super important to you and kind of how you think about healthcare in general, which I love. Thank you for sharing. I want to talk about just making, and I think we talked a little bit about this already, but like making dental care more human, because I think you have some really interesting insights, especially given your role on this. So when you think about patient experience in general and just making dental care human, more human, what's a factor that you think is important but like doesn't happen all the time, overlooked, not something that people are paying attention to as much as they should?
Seems like it wouldn't be overlooked, so but it is. More of the soft skill things, excuse me, like greeting someone when they walk in the door. Like I cannot tell you how many times I've walked into doctor's offices, dentist offices, and like either like a disembodied voice in the background somewhere will be like, "I'll be right with you," or like, or just nothing. No one's sitting at the front desk, or there are, and they don't even look up. That kind of stuff really gets to me and kind of, makes my decision whether or not I want to go somewhere. Again, so it'll be like people greeting me, or like they call your name to go to the back and they don't escort you to the back. They just walk ahead of you and like don't talk to you the whole time. Or just like let you walk ahead of them, which is super awkward because I'm like, where do I go? I don't know where to go. And they give you instructions like room 3. I'm like, where's the room numbers? I don't even see them. Like I hate stuff like that. But really, like just kind of like white gloving it for the patient, every single patient, every time, makes a huge difference. And I feel like that's something that's overlooked because, especially right now, dental employees are overworked, overtired, burnout, but I think that getting over the burnout is really trying to work on how you treat patients so that you have a better patient experience, both sides. So you're going to get treated better by the patients if you're making a really big effort to make them happy and make them feel welcome. And it goes both ways.
It's hard to have good patient experience if the staff experience isn't really linked to that, right? I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah. But I think it goes both ways. So happy patient experiences will then make the staff cheer up and vice versa. So
100%. This is just like something that's coming to my mind as you're saying this, right? Like one of the things we talk about a lot is like partnering with patients, right? It's a joint decision. It's like working together to do these things. We're never working on people. We're never working even for them, right? Because that will cause burnout, right? Like we're doing something for someone. We're working with people, right? And that analogy that you just gave us of walking the patient to the room is so insightful from like a metaphorical perspective, right? Like we don't want someone walking ahead of us and telling us what to do. We don't want someone walking behind us and just like following us around, right? Because they do have some expertise to share. We want someone walking next to us and like walking with us on the journey. And even those 6 steps back to the patient room, it's a really beautiful metaphor of like if you're walking next to them, right? That's a great start to what hopefully
helpful.
Will be that.
It calms my nerves.
I love that.
I don't know what to do when I walk in.
I think that's just so great. This is a beautiful metaphor. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Love it. Okay, so I'm super excited to hear your answer to this question because I think this is really where it gets into, okay, like let's talk about this from a data perspective, right? So how do you think about, so your job is to analyze data, look at data, make decisions based on data, et cetera. And how do you think about data as it relates to patient experience, especially when it comes to things like the things that we've been talking about, like how do you measure trust, right? Or like, how does that correlate to people coming back or, feeling like, okay, wow, this is, I had a great experience here and I might be willing to share that with a friend or whatever, right? Like help us understand how you think about that process currently.
Yeah. So one of the things I noticed, it kind of goes back to when I was the director of operations. I had to deal with a lot of irate patients and I would, typically it wouldn't get escalated to me unless it was a really big situation. And most of the time it was just like, no one was listening to them. The person at the office level they were upset with got defensive instead of just trying to listen. And I think that was a really big thing that I learned was, people just want to be heard and want to get things off their chest. And, I would end the conversations with like, okay, I'll talk to them. I'm so sorry about that, whatever. Yeah. And like it ended there and they were perfectly happy. And something that they mentioned to me were always like, little soft touch things. It wasn't that the doctor did a terrible job or like anything like that. It was like the doctor didn't greet them by name or the doctor didn't listen to them. Or they came in, told them the chief complaint was like a gap between their teeth, right? And then the doctor went on about SRPs and crowns and all this stuff and never even talked about, anything with 8 and 9, nothing. So just little things like that are a huge deal and really do directly correlate with reviews. Because when people like you, they're more willing to give you a chance if you mess up. So let's say you do something as a clinician that is your fault, and something fails with the patient, and they come back. They're going to come back and give you the chance to fix it if they like you. And what I'm seeing in the data, as far as like NPS scores and like surveys and that kind of thing, is if you add in questions, it's actually, you mentioned this a long time ago with me, but like when you're adding in questions that are like soft skill stuff, like did someone greet you when you walked in the door? Did somebody escort you to the back? Did someone tell you thank you at checkout? Did someone ask you how you're feeling? Did the doctor know who you were when they walked in their room? One of my pet peeves actually is when a doctor comes in and says, "Hi, it's so nice to meet you." And I'm like, "I've met you like 4 times. Like just quickly glance at my chart and see that you were the provider I saw last. Like I've been coming to you for 2 years and you don't know who I am. Okay, cool. That's great. I mean, I don't expect you to remember every patient. You see tons of patients, but like just quick glance at the chart. Should have some notes in it, right?" So that kind of stuff. But it does affect reviews. And if you look at reviews and the verbiage in reviews, there's a lot of fun programs that can kind of show you what the top words are in your reviews and things like that. But if you look at the reviews, a lot of them have nothing to do with the actual dentistry. It's all about patient experience. The front desk being, just upset all the time. Like somebody looks grumpy, somebody answers the phone in a bad tone. A lot of it's billing stuff, but for the most part, other than billing being the top thing that everyone complains about, it's about patient experience. And I think if more people paid attention to the actual patient experience, I think a lot of it honestly has stemmed out of the COVID stuff because everyone was so frantic when we all came back. Like when the COVID closures happened, I was in Colorado when we closed for most of May and June, and reopened around it was like the Memorial Day, I guess. So we were closed for March, April, and part of May. And it was frantic when everybody went back to work. Like there was nobody at the front. They wanted us to take, temperatures and then have them wait outside, but then also answer the phones. And there was complete burnout. And I'm sure the staff was hectic and burnout and all that stuff. But it's still you have to think from a patient's point of view. The patient's coming in scared. They're scared of COVID. They're scared of coming in general. They're finally okay coming in because we're taking temperatures and doing all the right things. And then your frustration is they can feel it, it's palpable. So I think it's really important to try to find a balance there. And honestly, some of that I feel like is on the corporations to try to alleviate that. It's not just up to that one person. If there's nothing being done, you're not putting out ads, you're not trying as hard as you possibly can to fill the spots that are empty and causing these issues, then it's partially on them too.
Totally. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the things that you're kind of highlighting here, right, especially since COVID, right, there's been so much focus on, because patient experience and patient journey, right, is encompasses the moment the patient goes online to try to find something to the moment, you're way later, right, when they come back for a recall visit, right? So there's a lot that's happening there that's outside of the office. And I think we've done a decent job as a profession of trying to streamline and build tools and whatever that are essentially, making those digital kind of journey pieces more seamless, easier, right? You don't have to call the office to make an appointment. You just click online or whatever, right? You can pay your bill more easily. But I think what you're talking about here too is from the moment the patient walks in the door to the moment the patient walks out of the door is still such a crucial part of any part of healthcare, right? Is that in-person visit that, as we've seen kind of virtual visits start to kind of fall, not that they're nothing, not that they were what they were, but they're, that in-person visit is still so crucial. And I think you're giving us some great advice in terms of things that people can think about that really do impact that when the patient is in the office. And you're also talking about collecting data around that, right? Did someone greet you when you showed up? But, under what I like to think of as unlocking that black box, right? It's easy to create a digital, analytics page of hey, they clicked on this, they did this and whatever. It's a lot harder to potentially understand what's happening when someone might be in the office.
Yeah. And it could have been they left a 3-star review, but the dentistry and everything was great. But the, Susie at the front desk looked at them wrong or didn't greet them or was kind of snippy. And it's those kind of things need to be trained at the office level, that they make a huge difference. And the ones that have implemented that I've seen in the past, absolutely killed it with their NPS scores after that. So it's not just like a survey that says like, you typical ones you get, like, would you recommend us to a friend? Did you have a good visit? Like 1 to 5 stars, like all that kind of stuff. And it's silly. It's like, what are you gonna do with this information?
Yeah.
That's not actionable information.
Makes you feel good if you do well, and it makes you feel crappy if you do bad, but it like actually doesn't give you anything to change, right?
Yeah, there's no actionable items there. It doesn't give you any information. There's some spots where it like, leaves the patient like an option to leave comments, and that can be helpful, but most of them don't leave comments. They just give you a rating and move on with the day. And it's usually because we've sent them 14 text messages about leaving a review. And so they're like, oh my God, I'm just going to go leave this to get this out of my hair. But if you ask more questions that are based around things that actually matter and have give actionable items and like what you can do to improve your scores, that's where I'm seeing in the data points where they actually are bringing the scores up. People who are actually paying attention to those things and asking those things are getting better reviews because they're able to then take that information and bring it home and actually do something with it.
Make changes, yeah. And I think that gets to the point of like, why are we collecting this data, right? Is like, are we collecting the data? Are we collecting the data to actually get better? It's like my hope for the dental profession is that like, and I know your hope for the dental profession is that we're using it to get better. We're not just like sitting there holding all this data and being like, wow.
That's my whole field. My whole job is like, here's all this data we've collected. Now what do we do with it? So, like we have to have people who have operational experience. Like I have operational experience. A few other people on my team do as well. And it's like, okay, we like everyone wants to see the KPIs, and like the standard ones are like, collections, production, dollars per visit, that kind of stuff. But like the things I want to see are, like soft skill stuff is awesome too. But like seeing, marketing, the way that the marketing goes, it's like you can't track ROI on a patient because all the marketing stuff comes back and just says like, okay, this is how many new patients you had this month during this campaign. But that's not the whole story. It's like the marketing campaign might have worked just fine, but the office couldn't get the new patient in for 2 months. So then it looks like it didn't work. But what we can see is like, hey, the patient first called this day. If we have call tracking, they made an account like 2 days later, and then they got scheduled 3 months out. So it worked and it did a great job. But without all that information, you would think that your campaign was not successful. So there's a lot of stuff in actually understanding how to interpret data that we miss.
Yeah. And then to your point, right? Like you are the senior director of data and analytics, right? Is that like your title, right? Director.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it sounds like you're feeling like your job is also change management director, right? Of like, hey, my job is now to take this data and actually help people like operationalize it, which is exactly what we should be doing. And
basically meet with the ops team. Yeah, meet with the ops team, tell them what's
getting better. But like then it's like, cool. Now we actually have to like have some understanding of like organizational psychology and like how people make changes and what works, right? And all that stuff.
Yeah, and I also do a lot of due diligence. So I also share with I would say like 75% of my job is in due diligence, and it's like sharing with a business development team like what some red flags might be based on some data points. And I feel like if you don't have dental operational experience with that, you may like miss that. Like if a practice is all ortho, you might look at it and go, okay, well, wow, they have a lot of credit balances and their revenue's off, but it's because they prepaid for their entire treatment and there's just credit sitting there, and then they charge it out every month, like little by little, as they do the treatment. And you wouldn't know that if you don't have that experience. So I think it's very valuable, and that's my favorite part of my job is doing the due diligence piece.
I love it. Well, I mean, I could sit here and chat with you all day about this. Continue this, and maybe we'll bring you back on in the future to like talk more, because I think that your job and your perspective as a human and whatnot really have such an important way of guiding us forward as a profession and helping everyone from DSO execs to private practice owners to front desk, people who are working the front desk, right? So I think you have just a really holistic view that is really interesting. But given that we try to keep it relatively short, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they go if they want to learn more about you or your company or whatever, right? Like, feel free to share with us, like, how do we get in touch with you? Or,
LinkedIn's probably the best. Just look at my name on LinkedIn. I'm the only Jordan Trentacosta in the universe. So, or my email at work is jordan.t@udc.dental.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that information with us. And if you do get the chance to be at a meeting with Jordan or something like that, I would highly recommend, getting to know her a little bit more if you can. She's just a lovely human. So, Jordan, thank you.
I'm going to open a network, so.
This is totally not related to this, but and I think we both appreciate music. Do you remember that Something Corporate song, If You See Jordan?
Yeah, I was so excited when that song came out. Like, finally, there's a song with my name in it. And then I listened to the song and I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like the most, but I think I just said If You See Jordan at a conference, and so then that just sparked something in my head. So,
all right, perfect.
I went to school in Southern California, probably saw Something Corporate like 15 times in college. So
they were at my grad bash, so I saw them too.
Anyways, on that note, Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. Really just
of course
to chat with you. And yeah, we appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.